We're just at the morning of day 3 of the job. Just going to let you know what we're up to. The engine is mounted, the gearbox mount is made, it's all sitting there nice. We've offsetted the engine 25mm to the passenger side to let the starter motor clear the steering rack. That's saving us like $1,000 in a starter relocation, so it's not going to be any problem with the driveline or anything like that. It's not uncommon for engines to be offset to one side. So it's all sitting there nicely. We're just starting on the exhaust manifolds, or Matt is. We fiddled around with it a little bit yesterday trying to figure out what we're going to do. One thing with an engine like this that you have to account for that you don't have to account for in a Japanese engine, like a double overhead cam engine that's got centre spark plugs, is you've got to make the exhaust manifolds work around the spark plug and lead setup, which can be a bit of a pain. So we've decided that we're going to remount the coils down low on the side of the block. And the reason for this is that we then have a greater path for our dump pipe to come through here. Previously the coils were on top of that valve cover, so it's a bit of a no heat zone. So we're going to move them, put them underneath. The other advantage of that is we can use these old style 90-degree ends, and that allows you to make symmetrical manifolds on either side, because on this side the spark plugs face backwards, on that side they face forwards because the heads are ambidextrous. So you've got to work around that to get your lead in if the leads come in from the top. And cooking leads is a real problem on LSs or any old V8, regardless of whether it's got turbo manifolds or NA manifolds on it. So you've got to have a bit of a think about that and work around that at the same time. So we reckon that's going to work well. We just have to extend the wiring to the coil, to the pack of coils on either side, which is no big deal in the grand scheme of things. So Matthew's started on making the manifolds. He'll be here shortly. And I'm going dirt bike riding, so see yous.
Matt has hooked himself up with a set of manifold flanges and is making a set of fancy log-type manifolds using Schedule 10 304 stainless steel pipe. The main log is tacked onto the flange and the other cylinder runners are then fed onto the main log.
Reconnected this year, ain't no slowing us down. High speed when we pass by, so when you hear that beat drop, please put them hands high. We live fast and die young, better make your count. The goal is to make change in the world and my bank account. I mean in large amounts, my daughter gotta eat too, and I'm tired of slaving for rich people.
Each cylinder runner is marked onto the main log so they can be cut out to create a passage for the exhaust gas. Matt has a very steady hand, so instead of burning through 30 hole saws like Dave, he's using a plasma cutter.
Speed it up, faster. Speed it up, faster. Speed it up, faster. Speed it up. Wasn't it just yesterday when we were young and carefree? Not a damn thing in this world could ever scare me. We never had it all, but we survived through the twists and the turns.
What's your thoughts on die grinding, Matt?
Oh, it's the best thing in the world, mate.
Best thing in the world, eh?
Devil's work.
The plasma cutter is quick and easy, and with a touch-up from the die grinder, the holes are the perfect size.
Look around, the vision is all I see. The rich go here, the poor stay here. The rest of y'all try your best to find you a career. I steer away from all that mess and overtake the competition. Speeding away fast like racing is my religion.
All the runners are tacked to the main log, and then Matt connects a secondary argon gas bottle to purge the inside of the manifold. This maintains a consistent pressure in the piping and stops the weld sugaring internally.
Smoke while I let these tires burn. Clock keeps ticking and we on the last lap. You know I got the handle, so we drifting through the track. And they bring it back 1 time, 2 times. Here we go. Since 98, I've been raw with an illy flow. Boombox recording, snow video. I've been around the world and back. They don't hear me though. It feels like I'm in a race with time. Now whenever I go hard for everything that's mine. All this work I put in is to provide what we never had. Pedal to the metal till I'm speeding past the checkered flag. Godspeed.
With the manifolds welded up, Matt grabs a couple of turbos Al had laying around and places them into position.
Left behind, swerving through all the twists and turns. We ain't losing this time. Let's go. Speed it up, faster. Speed it up, faster. Speed it up, faster. Speed it up, faster.
These aren't the turbos Matt is using, so only a small tack weld is required at this stage.
Racing is my religion. We live fast and die young. Racing is my religion.
What are you thinking, Al?
You about motorbike riding. And turbos and stuff.
Where are you getting all these turbos from, Al?
I got stocks.
You got stocks?
Yeah.
So what's that one?
It's a GT35 with a twin scroll exhaust housing.
And then what's that one over there?
That's just a GT35
Inverted commas.
with a non-twin scroll exhaust housing.
It's time to get stuck into mounting the intercooler. Matt has got his hands on a generic core from eBay with twin 2-inch inlets and a single 3-inch outlet. The 3-inch outlet isn't going to suit this application, so it's chopped and a 3-inch 45-degree mandrel bend is cut to size and welded onto the top tank. The mandrel bend is tacked onto the top tank and things are coming together just like Matt had pictured. The removable radiator support is then measured up and modified to give some clearance to the top of the intercooler outlet. The bonnet latch assembly was removed to fit the intercooler, so Matt is welding on some threaded bosses that allows the latch to be bolted onto the top tank, therefore providing a solid mounting spot for the bonnet latch.
This is our LS1 wiring loom. It's a bit of a mess out of an old car. Got oil and crap all over it. But it's going to do the job for us, and we got it with the engine and gearbox, so and along with the factory computer. And the factory computer's programmable, flash tunable. It's a pretty good unit, and it will do the job really well for us for no money. So we're going to use that. This is it here. It's a big nugget of a thing. Very common ECU used in a heap of different GM cars, not just LS1s. They can configure them to do whatever, which when in the hands of the aftermarket means that the aftermarket guys can configure it to do whatever also. So really good thing. So what I'm going to do with this is strip the whole thing back to just wires. That's just the way I prefer to do it. You probably could just go here and pick 3 wires and power them up and the engine would start and run, but that just leaves a whole mess of other crap doing nothing, which is not cool. So in the VX Commodore, there's your ECU connectors. It also had some other rubbish here. That's a throttle relaxer, which is some sort of primitive cruise control or something like that. It's a whole other ECU. It's got a thing called a PIM module, which is an integration unit that integrates that with the car's previous electronics that aren't the same protocol. So we can cut all that off. We don't need that anymore. This will just get flashed with no security system. That's a pretty simple thing to do. And basically it's just going to operate by itself in the car and works perfectly. So we'll start off by just stripping all the wiring cover, like all this stuff, tape it all up neat, and then just remove anything that's not required. There's not a whole heap of stuff on this. It's actually a very easy wiring loom to deal with. It's one of the simplest ones I've ever had to do, so it doesn't take very long. You just tidy it up, make sure all the connectors are okay. They do tend to have problems with some of the connectors getting brittle or the wires, especially around that throttle body end. This one actually looks pretty good though, so should be right. If they need replacing, we'll just replace them because they're only pretty cheap and readily available. So I'll get stuck into it.
Starting at the extremities of the wiring loom, Al starts stripping all the conduit and inspecting all the connectors along the way, with a couple being a little bit worse for wear.
What did you found there, Al?
I found a big pile of tape, which I suspected was covering up a twitching tape event. Of course it is.
Is there anything major?
Oh, it's only the main earth wire for everything. No biggie.
Wi-Fi.
Al reads through his wiring diagram and one by one removes wires from the ECU connectors that are no longer needed. Once he's done, it's taped back up and ready for other items to be added in the future, like cruise controller wiring, thermofan wiring, and also a Haltech fuse box. Next episode, our turbos arrive, so the manifolds can be finished off and the intercooler piping finalised.